History was made on today's date. Stay tuned for an American Minute with Bill Federer.
Born this day, September 6, 1757, he inherited a fortune when his parents died. He joined the French military and at age 16 became a captain. At 19, he purchased a ship and sailed to America to fight in the Revolution. Washington appointed him a major general. His name was Marquis de Lafayette. He fought courageously and persuaded France to send aid. Nearly 50 years later, Lafayette was the guest at a ceremony at Bunker Hill, along with 200 Revolutionary veterans. Daniel Webster spoke, "God has allowed you to behold the reward of your patriotic toils, and He has allowed us, in the name of liberty, to thank you."
This has been an American Minute with Bill Federer. For a free transcript, call American Minute at 1-888-USA-WORD.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at VCYAmerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And we do thank you for joining us today for a news roundup day on Crosstalk. So much happening this week. Our thanks to Sandy for putting so much together here for us. Molly on the phones and Dennis in the control room. We're grateful for our team here at VCY America. Friends, it does seem that the days are getting darker around us. I so appreciate the interview we had yesterday with Dr. Erwin Lutzer. Indeed, the darkness of this world is trying to block the sun. But, friends, keep in mind the sun is still shining, and we need to be bearers of that light. And I know many reached out to our bookstore yesterday to obtain a copy of The Eclipse of God. Their line was busy quite a bit yesterday afternoon, so if you could not get through, try again here today, vcy.com or 1-888-722-4829. But indeed, the days are dark around us, and all the more necessity for us as believers in Christ to spread the good news of the gospel. We're going to talk about some of the news unfolding this week. Matter of fact, we begin with the story from NBC News about 2 students and 2 teachers killed, 9 others wounded Wednesday in a school shooting. This began outside of Atlanta. One suspect, a 14-year-old, taken into custody. This was at the Appalachia High School. We reported this the other day. The suspect, identified as Colt Gray, surrendered to law enforcement immediately after being confronted, and things had quite a twist of events for the parents last night, because the father of this 14-year-old Georgia school shooting suspect, he was arrested last night in connection with this as well. This is Colin Gray, 54 years old, and charged now with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of second-degree murder, 8 counts of cruelty to children, according to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. His son had been charged with 4 counts of felony murder. In a press conference shortly following the arrest, police said the father has been charged for knowingly allowing his son to have a weapon. The Daily Signal reporting Hunter Biden pleaded guilty yesterday to each of 6 misdemeanor and 3 felony counts that he faced for allegedly failing to pay at least $1.4 million in taxes and filing falsified tax paperwork. Judge Mark Scarsi of the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California accepted the younger Biden's plea. Scarsi had told Biden he could get 17 years in prison and a $1 million fine. We understand sentencing is now scheduled for December 16th. That story on the Daily Signal. From Just the News, 2 months out from Election Day and less than 2 weeks before early voting begins, states and municipalities are fighting over whether to implement ballot drop boxes. In Ohio, Saturday, the Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, issued a directive to local election officials stating only voters can return their own ballots in drop boxes. Wisconsin, there are 2 Waukesha County municipalities that have voted to ban the use of ballot drop boxes. That would be Brookfield and New Berlin, not allowing them in their communities, even though the Wisconsin Supreme Court has allowed this throughout the state of Wisconsin. No law that allows this to happen, but they are allowing this to take place. Pennsylvania, a few Pennsylvania counties also rejected the use of ballot drop boxes. In March, Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania, decided that ballot drop boxes would not be used in the November election. Beaver, Butler, and Fayette counties also said that they do not use ballot drop boxes. In Wyoming, Secretary of State Chuck Gray sent a letter to the state's 23 county clerks in June stating that he rescinded his predecessor's directives that allowed for the ballot drop boxes to be there. The Epoch Times also reporting that election officials cannot reject mail-in ballots with incorrect dates or no dates as long as the ballots are submitted before the filing deadline. This is in Pennsylvania, and the Pennsylvania court has ruled this. A panel of the Commonwealth Court, a state appeals court, ruled on August 30th that the requirement in the law for mail-in ballot envelopes to have dates written on them violates the Pennsylvania Constitution. Well, this applies in Philadelphia and Allegheny counties. The Federalist reporting the top election official for Nevada's most populous county relented and finally decided to look into bad addresses on the state's voter rolls. Election integrity watchdog, the Public Interest Legal Foundation, has even since before the 2020 election investigated bad addresses in the Silver State, documenting hundreds of questionable addresses on the rolls, including vacant lots and fast food restaurants, gas stations, tattoo parlors, even funeral homes. They've captured on camera employees and business owners confirming that the individuals listed as residing at the commercial addresses, in fact, did not. From the Free Beacon, the Republican National Committee on Tuesday sent letters to election officials in 6 swing states, urging them to monitor the vote and I emphasize it's vote ER, like emergency room, the nonprofit that helps doctors register their patients to vote for possible violations of election law. According to Secretaries of State in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, Arizona, and Nevada, the letters argued that Vote is weaponizing the healthcare system for partisan ends and threatening election integrity with its materials, which have been used to register patients in emergency rooms, substance abuse clinics, even psychiatric hospitals. It's not difficult to imagine how a patient could feel pressured to register to vote or support a certain candidate to receive medical care, the letter stated. From Politico, Kamala Harris's campaign and the Democratic National Committee said Tuesday they are sending nearly $25 million to support downstate ballot Democrats, that going out to a number of states to assist. Daily Caller. The Republicans' Voters Against Trump, which has received substantial funding from Democratic donors, announced an $11.5 million ad campaign across several key battleground states Monday to encourage disaffected GOP voters to support Vice President Kamala Harris. The ad buy, the most expensive campaign the group has launched so far, is pouring $4.5 million in Pennsylvania. According to the Daily Caller, $3 million to Michigan, $2.2 million in Wisconsin, $1.5 million in Arizona, and $375,000 in Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District. It features video ads and billboards plastered throughout the states showcasing Republican voters who initially supported former President Trump, but instead have come out in support of Harris. From townhall.com, independent far-left presidential candidate Cornel West revealed a shocking admission about how far the Democratic Party will go to win the 2024 election. During an interview on the Status Quo news podcast, West claimed that the Harris campaign offered him a deal that resulted in him dropping out of the race. He suggested they bribed him by offering him a cushy job in the Harris administration should she be elected, and a promise to pay off his campaign debts. Also in Town Hall, President Trump was scheduled to be sentenced by New York Judge Juan Merchan on September 18th, less than 2 months before the presidential election, after being charged with dozens of crimes. Well, Merchan announced today that he is delaying Trump's sentencing in the case until after the election, has set a new date of November 26, just a couple days before Thanksgiving. Meanwhile, a new ethics complaint has been filed against Judge Merchan over conflicts of interest, specifically work that his daughter did using Trump's trial for political benefit and fundraising on behalf of Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris. From FoxNews.com, federal judge Tanya Chutkan will not hold the trial for former President Trump on charges stemming from Jack Smith's January 6th investigation until after the presidential election. A status hearing was held yesterday morning. In the order, the judge set deadlines, that is, for replies and paperwork from federal prosecutors and Trump's legal team for November the 7th, which is after Election Day by just a couple of days. From FoxNews.com, New York police have arrested a former aide to Governor Kathy Hochul on Tuesday, weeks after the FBI raided the aide's Long Island home. Authorities arrested both Linda's son and her husband in Tuesday's action. Son is charged with violating and conspiring to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act, visa fraud, alien smuggling, and money laundering conspiracy. She's alleged to have acted on behalf of the government of China and the Chinese Communist Party. Hochul fired Son last year after her office discovered evidence of misconduct. Let's see. Another news here from the Epoch Times. A pair of United States Marines in western Turkey have been assaulted by members of a local anti-American group. The U.S. Embassy in Turkey said in a September 2nd statement on social media, X, that the two service members were from the USS Wasp. We can confirm reports that the U.S. service members embarked aboard the USS Wasp were the victims of assault in Izmir and are now safe, the embassy said. We thank Turkish authorities for their rapid response and ongoing investigation. Concerning the military, Newsmax has a rather disturbing story. The U.S. Army is at its smallest size since pre-World War II. The Army has failed to meet its recruiting goals for the last 2 years and missed its 2023 target by 10,000 soldiers. That's a 20% shortfall. The active duty Army currently has 445,000 soldiers, which is 41,000 fewer than in 2021, and the smallest it has been since 1940. Navy and Air Force also missed their recruiting goals in 2023. Well, billionaire investor Mark Cuban has cautioned that Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris's proposed tax plan might severely impact the stock market during a recent appearance on CNBC's Squawk Box. This is a story that's on Newsmax.com. Cuban said if you tax unrealized gains, you're going to kill the stock market. It's going to be the ultimate employment plan for private equity because companies are not going to go public. You can get whipsawed. Harris proposed raising the capital gains tax to 28%. On the contrary, Fox News is reporting former President Trump delivered a major economic address in New York Thursday, announcing his plan to cut the corporate tax rate to 15% and create a government efficiency commission led by Elon Musk, while vowing to make America richer and stronger if elected in November. Trump made the announcement during a speech to the Economic Club of New York, saying that Harris and her radical left agenda poses, quote, a fundamental threat to the prosperity of every American family and America itself. He said, I'm here today to lay out my plan to rescue our country from this nightmare and to bring back to its citizens the American dream, bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. That's being said by former President Trump. We've got some other news that are going on as well here in the campaign, which we'll be getting to. But let me share this from The Advocate. This is a LGBT publication. The Advocate has exclusively learned that Tim Walz will deliver the keynote address at the Human Rights Campaign's national dinner at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center in Washington, D.C. on Saturday. This is an annual affair. It's hosted by the nation's largest LGBTQ plus civil rights organization. Walz's commitment to the LGBTQ plus rights is well documented. As a high school studies teacher and football coach, he was a faculty sponsor for the school's first Gay-Straight Alliance. As Minnesota's governor, Walz also signed legislation banning so-called conversion therapy and enacted measures to ensure health care access for LGBTQ plus residents. Let's see. Also, we find that there are a number of companies that are backing away from the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda. And friends, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk more about that issue. Also, some clips from some of the recent campaigning going on. You're listening to Crosstalk here on the Friday News Roundup on the VCY America Network.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist and author at the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, why is the ocean salty?
Chris, salt is added to the ocean on a daily basis as rain falls on the land surface, dissolving salt, which then gets into the rivers and ultimately to the ocean. And we can measure how much salt is carried in the rivers. We also know how much salt is in the ocean. A simple division of the amount of salt by the rate at which it's added shows us that the age of the Earth's oceans is far too young to have allowed for evolution, because evolution assumes that life evolved in a salty sea long ago. But if the oceans were old, they would already be so choked with salt that life would be impossible. You see, Chris, the direct scientific observations do not support the evolution idea. They do support recent creation, and that's the recent creation we read about when we go back to Genesis.
For free information on creation, visit us on the web at www.icr.org.
This is Crosstalk on the VCY American Network and a News Roundup Day here today. Thanks for tuning in today and each and every day for Crosstalk. A number of guests and topics already put into place for next week. Looking forward to it. But today, a news roundup that's before us, coming from a multiplicity of news sources. And I continue on here from the Free Beacon. University of South Carolina required students to affirm the value of diversity and inclusion as part of a mandatory training this summer. In a module on diversity, inclusion, and belonging, which included 10 multiple-choice questions, the training asked students how diversity and inclusion help create a healthy, positive campus environment. Students who said that these values do not create such an environment were told that their answers were incorrect. The right answer was that diversity and inclusion exposes students to people from different backgrounds, thus enriching the overall campus experience. Students needed at least an 80% on a quiz with just 10 questions to pass the training and to register for classes, according to the screenshots. USC also warned students in emails that registration holds will take effect if you do not complete the module. Well, companies are breaking away from the diversity, equity, and inclusion mantra that's been foisted by groups like the Human Rights Campaign. LifeSiteNews.com reporting that the hardware retail chain Lowe's is the latest major brand to announce a retreat from woke policies, again driven by pressure from conservative filmmaker Robbie Starbuck. Starbuck announced Monday on X that he had notified Lowe's that he was planning another of his now trademark exposés against the company's left-wing corporate policies, to which Lowe's responded by announcing multiple changes to the policies. Specifically, the company will stop participating in the Corporate Equality Index social credit system promoted by the LGBT pressure group Human Rights Campaign. They will cease donations to Pride and other diverse events and replace identity-based employee resource groups with one for all employees. Also, Molson Coors is the latest addition to this growing list of companies. Internal memos sent out Wednesday and obtained by CNBC, their executives said the company will be getting rid of supplier diversity quotas, adding that they can be complicated and influenced by factors outside of the company's control. They said that they were developing the next evolution of its company trainings that will focus on key business objectives instead of its previously DEI-based training. The Daily Caller reporting nearly 24 states are urging a federal appeals court to uphold Florida's ban on child sex change operations, warning that history may not look kindly on the sterilization of children for gender distress. In a brief that was filed Wednesday, Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall and 22 other state attorneys general urged the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals to reverse a lower court ruling that overturned Florida's pediatric sex change ban. The brief noted that until recently, providing sex change treatments to minors was practically unthinkable, and recognized that many states and European countries have already created age-based restrictions on sex change medical interventions. Be praying for the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, friends, as they deal with their decision on this issue. The Daily Wire reports a Colorado school district, Colorado, knowingly and reportedly assigned children to bunk with members of the opposite sex on overnight trips, according to a lawsuit first obtained by the Daily Wire. Jefferson County Schools District's transgender students policy requires that all students on overnight visits are to be roomed by their gender identity rather than their actual sex. The district shared this policy with transgender-identifying students and chaperones, but not with students or their parents. Daily Signal reporting the city of Huntington Beach is set to file a lawsuit against California's unconstitutional law requiring school districts to hide students' gender identity from their parents, the city's attorney tells the Daily Signal. The Huntington Beach City Council passed an ordinance Tuesday establishing itself as a parents' right-to-know city. The ordinance allows Huntington Beach City Attorney Michael Gates to challenge Assembly Bill 1955. AB 1955 overrules any school board policies that require transparency with parents about their child's sexual orientation or gender identity. In response, the Huntington Beach's ordinances prohibits educators from hiding the information. It sends a signal to our community in Huntington Beach of 200,000 residents that we are a parents' right-to-know city and that educators should not interfere in the parent-child relationships, Gates told the Daily Signal. Let's go to Texas. LifeSiteNews.com. Gender-confused individuals in Texas can no longer have their registered sex changed on driver's licenses and other state ID cards due to a policy change that's been championed by conservative state officials. KUT News reported that effective last week, sex can only be changed to correct clerical errors in how it was originally listed, and requests to change to align with an applicant's claimed gender identity will not be accommodated. Changes going on in Florida as well. Florida, this is LifeSiteNews.com. Florida has removed from its state's tourism website a section highlighting pro-LGBTQ attractions in the state. The website is dedicated to the tourism, a nonprofit organization Visit Florida. And archive portion shows that the portal used to show the beach hotspots for homosexuals and pride events and suggestions for homosexual or gender-confused tourists. Well, the web address now has been changed, and that's been removed. And so people now that try to link to this landing page now go to a general things to do in Florida page. Well, again, things happening within the election right now, and Brazil has just pulled down. X has pulled the plug on it, and Kamala Harris, this is a story that was on WND.com. Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee for president, now going to war with billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk, saying he has lost his privileges and that his free speech X site, formerly known as Twitter, should be taken down. Here's what she had to say as she spoke with CNN's Jake Tapper.
He has lost his privileges and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
That's got to stop. Isn't that something? Did you sense an attack on free speech taking place there? Also, there was supposed to be a debate earlier this week on Fox between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, but Harris would not accept that, and so former President Trump was on the program and did an interview with Sean Hannity. He spoke about a wide range of issues during this town hall event, and it was held in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. One of the issues that was brought up was a matter of illegal immigration.
But we never could imagine we'd have borders where 20 million people are poured into our country. Many criminals from all over the world are coming into our country. They're coming from jails, from not just South America, from all over the world. They're coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen. They're coming from prisons. They're allowing prisoners to come out of all countries. They had almost 180 countries represented over the last number of months. 180. Most people don't know that you have that many countries. They're emptying out their prisons and jails. They're emptying out their mental institutions and insane asylums. They're emptying out the sickest people, and they're emptying all into the United States. And you said it better than anybody. More terrorists have come into the United States in the last 3 years than I think probably 50 years. There's never been anything like it. These people are so bad. They're so dangerous, what they've done to our country. is they're destroying our country, and we can't let this happen. If they won, you'd have not 20 million, you have 100 million people. You won't have Social Security, you won't have Medicare, you won't have anything. Already, if you take a look at the numbers, they're filling up and loading up Social Security, Medicare with illegal immigrants that have come into our country, many of them from jails and many of them from very bad places. And we're not going to destroy our country, Sean.
This taken from the town hall with Sean Hannity on Fox earlier this week. And also a very interesting story coming forth. This I'm looking right now from the Daily Wire, but it's Vice President Harris, after years of decrying former President Trump's border wall as being racist and un-American, is now using footage from that very wall in her political ads, and CNN has caught her at it. Out front, anchor Aaron Burnett ran a story noting Harris's previous criticism of the border policies of Donald Trump, and they had a K-file investigation. Let me just play a clip from what they released on CNN.
Tonight, K-File investigates. In a new report, you'll see first out front. The K-File team scoured Kamala Harris's tweets and statements going all the way back to 2017. And what they found was more than 50 instances of Harris slamming Trump's border wall. But now, new Harris campaign ads actually showcase that very wall.
As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border.
And on top of critical tweets, Harris also wrote in her 2019 book, quote, "There was a bigger reason to oppose the border wall. A useless wall on the southern border would be nothing more than a symbol, a monument standing in opposition to not just everything I value, but to the fundamental values upon which this country was built. How could I vote to build what would be little more than a monument designed to send the cold, hard message, keep out?" Well, K-File's Andrew Kaczynski joins me now. So, Andrew, I mean, you all have gone through, scoured an incredible amount of material. Tell me more about what you found.
Yeah, that's right. We found more than 50 of those tweets criticizing the border wall before she used that in her ad. And I want people to take a look at just a few of what she said here. She called it wasteful, useless, a waste of taxpayer money, a vanity wall project, a wasteful border wall, a stupid wall, a medieval vanity project, and an unnecessary wall. And those are really just, there were more of this, just like 10 or like 50. But there was really a lot of this was the common refrain during the campaign. You read that quote where she said it was against everything that not only she stood for, everything America stood for, but and she brought this up a lot. Take a listen to just one instance of that in 2019.
It's the president's vanity project.
His multi-billion-dollar vanity project called a wall is nothing more than a distraction from the fact that he actually hasn't focused on working people in America. He contrived a national crisis around his big distraction.
All right, so you go through all of that, you've got all the tweets, and yet all of a sudden in the ads, there's pictures of the wall, and then you went through to look at that wall. Yeah. Like, what is that specific wall that's in her campaign ads now? And you found something very interesting about this specific portion of the wall.
And I think what's also really remarkable about this is, you heard her talking about it there, Trump's wall in his campaign during his presidency. There was really no greater symbol of Trump's presidency than the wall and the way that Democrats were attacking him over the wall and his restrictive immigration policies. So we looked in that ad, and if you look at it, that exact area of wall is in Sasabe, Arizona, and that is a portion of wall that was actually built by Donald Trump. It was built in an area where there was not previous wall. It was actually pretty controversial when they were building it at the time. So just to see that, and then there are other...
She's using his wall that he built to say, look at what I did.
Well, their story goes on from there, but very interesting indeed. Decrying his wall before as being racist and un-American, and now using footage from that very portion of wall that he had built in her own campaign ads. Find that interesting? And exposed on CNN. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to Crosstalk.
How many times have you met a Muslim man or woman, maybe in the airport, on a bus, or in your neighborhood store, and you felt burdened to share the good news of Jesus Christ? I know I should say something, but where do I begin? The Straight Way of Grace Ministry has a small tract booklet that will empower you to reach those lost in the deception of Islam. A 24-page booklet that seeks to convince Muslims that the Bible has not been corrupted, revealing convincing proof that the Quran cannot be the Word of God, clearly presenting the loving truth of the soul-saving gospel of Jesus Christ alone. It's called The Straight Way to Eternal Life. One copy is available for a donation of $2, 5 copies for $9, or 10 copies for a donation of $12. Call 1-800-729-9829.
It's a news roundup on Crosstalk coming your way from VCY America, taking a look at many events. I see my stacks. I'm not going to make it all through the news here, but covering a number of issues. And we're just talking about border security a moment ago and Western Journal. I mean, friends, it is happening day after day after day. This one from Western Journal, 26-year-old Honduran man deported from the U.S. during the Trump administration was arrested this past Sunday after a knife attack the day before on a 14-year-old girl watching her brother's baseball game in northwestern Indiana. This was had been deported back in 2018, may have engaged in criminal activity across the U.S. since returning to the country illegally. Interesting. The teen's mom attempted to intervene. The attacker attempted to stab her as well. Then we have from Newsmax.com, illegal immigrant from Mexico, been deported 4 times from the U.S., including after a murder conviction in Alabama, was arrested last week in Houston. We also have from the Christian Post, an illegal immigrant accused of raping a 14-year-old girl and repeatedly stabbing a man during a robbery was arrested in connection with the crimes only a few months after his release from custody at the southwest border. The release was due to a reported lack of space, and the immigrant received instructions to report to ICE enforcement and removal operations in New Orleans back last November 7th, 2023. I guess he was, according to the congressional report, the Department of Homeland Security's data shows it had the space to detain him. And this from the Daily Caller. Migrants reportedly make up roughly 75% of the arrests. 75% of the arrests in Midtown Manhattan and a large bulk of other New York City neighborhoods, according to the New York Post. I didn't think this was going to happen, but friends, breaking news happened just earlier today. Governor Newsom of California vetoed a controversial bill that would have given hundreds of thousands of dollars in housing loans to illegal immigrants. It was known as the California Dream for All. This was a program to give up to $150,000 down payment. Well, he did veto that here earlier today. Thankful for that. WND.com, Russian President Vladimir Putin took time away from orchestrating his military campaign against Ukraine to confirm his endorsement of a candidate in America's 2024 presidential election. While Putin's voice on the video is significantly muted, an interview is speaking, and he said if we can name a favorite candidate, it used to be Joe Biden, but now he's not participating in the election campaign. So the narrator explains Biden has told people to support Kamala Harris, so that is what we are going to do. Putin announcing his endorsement of Kamala Harris. WND.com, a new investigation is intended to reveal whether Joe Biden and Kamala Harris engaged in a months-long election interference scheme by vastly inflating the actual number of jobs created during their tenure in the White House. U.S. Senator Roger Marshall has announced he's pursuing a review of their actions for lying about the numbers. In fact, the federal government already has confirmed a revision of those numbers, taking them down by 818,000, or about 30%. Newsmax.com, Democratic Vice Presidential nominee Tim Walz slammed as, for dodging a question about the 6 dead Israeli hostages executed by Hamas's terrorists and found over the weekend. The course of criticism began Sunday when he's at the Minnesota State Fair. He was asked by a reporter his thoughts about the 6 being found dead in Gaza. And all of a sudden, it was all right. Thanks, everybody, he said in response as he waved to the crowd and walked away. From Christian Post, House Republicans are demanding answers from Tim Walz regarding a $250 million COVID-19 fraud scheme. Education and Workforce Committee Chairwoman Representative Virginia Fox of North Carolina issued a subpoena Wednesday. It concerns an investigation that goes back to 2022 regarding a $250 million fraud scheme by a Minnesota-based nonprofit called Feeding Our Future. The program was intended to help feed hungry children during the COVID-19 pandemic, but Feeding Our Future, reportedly created fake attendance rosters with the names and ages of non-existent children and falsified invoices to create a facade of providing food to the pretend children. The Daily Mail reporting a new leaked image shows members of the Tim Walz family now supporting his Republican rival. Photo shared by former Nebraska GOP gubernatorial candidate Charles Herbster shows 8 people wearing Nebraska Walzes for Trump T-shirts. Trump replied to the image by previewing that he plans to meet with another member of the Walz family who is not in the image, and that would be the governor's older brother, Jeff. Just the News reporting that an independent watchdog group is warning that the Biden administration is busy working to blunt the impact that a Trump presidency might have on the Department of Justice, using special authority to appoint without competition select career civil servants to key roles. The warning comes from nonpartisan government watchdog group Protect the Public Trust after the group obtained appointment records through the Freedom of Information Act. Their director, Michael Chamberlain, said normally to be hired into a career civil service job, it takes a listing in usajobs.gov, and they'll have several candidates. They'll go through a competitive process to choose these, but the DOJ is using a process outside of that, the non-competitive process, to hire hundreds of attorneys into areas that are going to be vital to protecting the Biden-Harris administration's policies from a Trump administration or another future administration, he continued. By the way, it's amazing how fast the attempted assassination of Donald Trump just fell off the news wagon. You don't hear about it being taught anymore and told about and reported about in the investigations. Well, Senator Josh Hawley, and I'm looking at a story here from the Right Scoop, Senator Josh Hawley revealed new outrageous details from a whistleblower about the agents working that event in July when President Trump was nearly assassinated. Here's what he had to say.
Senator Josh Hawley's been in contact with whistleblowers and has new information he's going to exclusively share with us here at Primetime. So what now are we hearing from whistleblowers, Senator?
Well, what I've heard tonight, Jesse, is that most of the agents who were there at that rally in Butler were not Secret Service agents. They were, in fact, Homeland Security agents. And get this, most of those Homeland Security agents, the only training that they received was an online webinar, a 2-hour online webinar. And I'm told that about half the time, the sound to the webinar didn't even work. So think about this. The President of the United States, former President of the United States, Donald Trump, is sent out on stage. Most of the people there aren't trained. They're not qualified. They only got a webinar training, and even that didn't work. It is absolutely outrageous.
That coming from Senator Josh Hawley earlier this week. And friends, we're going to continue to hear this as being non-news. It will not be covered here by major networks. From LifeSiteNews.com, signing a joint declaration with Indonesia's Muslim Grand Imam, Pope Francis urged interreligious unity and harmony, while also warning about dehumanization and climate change. Pope Francis joined the Grand Imam at Jakarta's mosque, and the pontiff visited the famous Tunnel of Friendship that links the mosque with the Catholic Cathedral. This tunnel, sponsored by the government, has assumed a key role in shining a light on the relations between Muslims and Catholics in the country. Francis congratulated all present for maintaining the tunnel as a place of dialogue and encounter, adding how different religions, traditions have a role to play in helping everyone pass through the tunnel of life with our eyes turned toward the light. Let's see. There is a story also from SRNnews.com. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu Monday pushed back against a new wave of pressure to reach a ceasefire deal in Gaza after hundreds of thousands of Israelis protested, went on strike, and U.S. President Joe Biden said he needed to do more after nearly 11 months of fighting. Netanyahu said he will continue to insist on a demand that has emerged as a major sticking point on talks, continued Israeli control of the Philadelphia corridor. Netanyahu called the corridor vital to ensuring Hamas cannot rearm via tunnels. This is the oxygen of Hamas, he said, and he added, no one is more committed to freeing the hostages than me. No one will preach to me on this issue. Lord willing, this coming Monday, we're going to be joined by Jimmy DeYoung Jr. We'll be looking at a number of issues pertaining to Israel. Jimmy DeYoung has not been with us for several months now, I believe multiple months, and looking forward to his perspective as well on some of these issues. Okay, let's look at WND.com. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression has filed a lawsuit against the city of Surprise, Arizona, and several officials after the mayor decided his policy of not allowing residents to offer any criticism of city officials overruled the U.S. Constitution to Council meetings. When Mayor Skip Hall ordered resident Rebecca Massey arrested for her speech during a portion of a government meeting set aside for residents' concerns, she was opposed to a city decision to give its lawyer even more money. Hall threatened that she wasn't allowed to make such comments. She said, "You're violating my First Amendment rights." Hall said, "That's your opinion." She said, "Not a matter of opinion." Ultimately, she was arrested, cuffed, and accused of trespass as she shouted, "Are you kidding me?" Really amazing what's going on. This is an open time for citizens to talk. However, they're prohibited from expressing criticism of city officials. Well, we understand now that the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression has filed a lawsuit on her behalf. From FoxNews.com, Ford Motor Company recently filed a patent application that's raising eyebrows and sparking debate about privacy and surveillance on our roads. The patent is called Systems and Methods for Detecting Speeding Violations, describes a system that could turn Ford vehicles into mobile speed detectors capable of reporting other drivers to the police. The proposed system utilizes a sophisticated combination of onboard cameras and sensors to monitor the speed of surrounding vehicles in real time. If a car is detected exceeding the speed limit, the system springs into action. It captures a high-resolution image of the speeding vehicle, meticulously records the speed, time, and precise location of the violation, and then compiles this information into a comprehensive report. The data package is then transmitted directly to police or roadside monitoring units via secure internet connection. According to the story, if you go into it, evidently they're saying, well, no, this patent is for police vehicles. But when you look through the details, it does not appear that it is limited in that fashion. So the headline says Fox's new tech could turn police cars into high-tech watchdogs, but they're concerned what this might mean for the broader picture as well. Well, rising food prices have slowed down compared to the previous few years, but we continue to feel the pain of high prices, USA Today reports. Between July of 23 and July of 24, food prices still rose 2.2%. Not as much growth from the previous year, but even with cooling food inflation, grocery prices are about 25% up compared to 2019, according to the Bureau. Vermont experienced the largest increase in grocery prices, followed by Hawaii and Oklahoma. And the following a number of cities fell into the largest increases. City in Hawaii is one, but then San Antonio, West Texas, number 3 on the list. Oklahoma City is 4. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our home city, made number 10 on the list. Friends, we need to take a quick break, and though I've got more stories here, let's open our phone lines. If you'd like to comment on these or other current events, our telephone number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. That's 1-800-733-9829 to comment on these stories today or other current event issues. We know there's so much more that we have not gotten to, so you're welcome to call in on the broadcast. Back in a minute here on Crosstalk. Again, the number 800-733-9829.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewtube.com. In 1994, my friend G. Edward Griffin wrote a book every American should read. It is just a little over 600 pages. The Creature from Jekyll Island, a second look at the Federal Reserve. Of course, the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. And as you read this book, you find out that so much of what we now know openly about our corrupt federal government has been under the surface for a long time, with a small voice of warriors warning, watchmen giving an alert to the fact that we've been infiltrated from within. In fact, many presidents even warned. The Federal Reserve, it's a scam from the word go. Creating money out of thin air. Federal Deposit Insurance Company or corporation is not insurance at all. That's a scam. It is guaranteed to steal from the American people and create a crisis that can be exploited by the same people that created the Fed. I'm Brandon House.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America, Friday News Roundup here today, and taking your calls, 800-733-9829. Let's begin in Berea, Kentucky. And Arthur, thanks for calling Crosstalk. You're on the air.
Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to make a statement about one of your first comments there on Donald Trump and his trial the 18th. And I know, and I think everybody else, pretty sure that he's going to be sentenced to jail time. My comment is, will we see the same incident that we experienced with Epstein? Because they want him gone, and that's the perfect opportune time. I hope it don't happen. I'm just telling people, be on the lookout. Happened with Epstein, will it happen with him?
Okay. Thank you, Arthur. Appreciate your comment. Let's go to Dave next in Phoenix, Arizona. Dave, you're on the air.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, it looks like we've got one last chance this year. If Trump doesn't get in, and I'm not saying he's the Messiah, but what I'm saying is that if his policies aren't introduced, I think we're just about done as a country. So that's my thing. If the the Democrats get in, we're done.
Thanks for
That's all I need.
Thanks for your comments here today. And hearing from you, friends, if you'd like to comment on the stories we presented here today or other current event news, our number 800-733-9829, 800-733-9829. Let's go next to Bronx, New York. We have Angel calling. Hi, Angel. You're on the air.
Well, this past Tuesday, we all know that there was a shooting that took place this past week, right, in that high school. And listen to this. There was a mom that, thank God, that she had a 15-year-old son who was in that high school. And this is what she said, that her son got out safely. And she said, quote, "What I do before I send my son out to high school is to pray." And I said, wow. Because in 2 Chronicles 7, I believe verse 14, it says, "If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from the wicked way, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and will heal their land." It's time not only for America to pray, but it's time for the whole world to pray to the Lord.
Thank you, Angel. Thank you for your call here today. Prayer is so very, very important. And let's continue on. Dallas, Texas, and Lois, you're on the air.
Thank you for your call here today.
Hello, Lois. You're on the air.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Oh, praise Lord Jesus Messiah. He loves you. Please study King James Bible prophecy. Jesus is returning. I have a question. Why is it that you don't pray? You know, you always ask people to pray for this, that, and the other, but why you have millions maybe of people listening, why don't you pray?
I do pray here, Lois, and spend time with the Lord daily in prayer, and that is so very important, and we do, and we have many Bible teachers on air as well that are praying through the course of their broadcast. So, yes, we are advocate for prayer. We do have a matter of fact, we're having a day of prayer coming up on the Saturday before the election at Trail Ridge Camp that I will be leading in that as well. So, something very important that we can do. Thank you. So, yes, I do. Thank you. And taking your calls here today. By the way, Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign, this is from the New American, has launched a reproductive freedom bus tour with a mission to emphasize abortion as a critical issue in the upcoming election. Started this past Tuesday, West Palm Beach, Florida. It's a 50-stop tour. Meanwhile, LifeNews.com is reporting the world is running out of children as the global birth rates are collapsing. The collapse in birth rates began in post-war Europe, has in the decades since spread to every single corner of the globe. Many nations are feeling this death spiral. Japan has lost nearly 1 million people. Poland lost 130,000 people. China, the numbers are just off the charts. And even India has overtaken China in population here at this time. We've got Laura who is calling next, and Laura is from Maryland. You're on the air.
Thank you, Jim. Hey, I just wanted to comment. I was alerted to a bill that's going to be here in Maryland for my fellow Maryland listeners on the docket called Under the Guise of Human Reproductive Rights, which is actually a bill designed to come and take children out of their families if they are confused, if they confide into a teacher or a doctor or anything like that, that if you don't affirm them, that they can come in and take your kids from you. Oh, my, that's dangerous. Do you have a bill number? I don't, but I can get that sent over to you guys' email, where I'll look on your website to contact you, and I'll get that to you guys so you guys can discuss it.
Laura, thank you for your call here.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. We got Billy in Iowa calling. Billy, you're on the air.
Yes, sir, Brother Jim. I think one of our biggest things in America, we've gotten so comfortable and so soft that we want so bad at almost any cost to get back to where we're comfortable. And Jesus said we would have trials and tribulations. And I think our biggest battle right now is one that the disciples faced when they were in the Garden of Gethsemane. And Jesus said, yield not to temptation. And I feel their biggest temptation then was not go to sleep. And then he woke them up. He said, could you not watch with me for 1 hour? And I feel like that's our worst thing right now is our biggest temptation. Do not.
Nope, we lost connection there, Billy.
The time right now for prayer is at hand.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so very much. Wayne is calling from Pasco, Washington. You're on the air.
Yes, I want to emphasize how important it is for Christians to vote in this election. It's biblical for Christians to vote and to vote their conscience and to vote for life. And we know Kamala Harris it's well documented. She's pro-abortion, and Donald Trump, although not perfect, is pro-life in his views. And he's not perfect, but we know if he's reelected that he'll help protect life, and that'll save more babies, unborn children.
Okay, thank you for your thoughts here today, Wayne. And to all of you, we have run out of time here on the broadcast, but much taking place in our world today. And yes, I call upon our listeners to be in prayer for our nation and to spend meaningful time in prayer daily in your time with the Lord. And certainly as we go to church, by the way, it is Friday, the Lord's Day is coming. And can I encourage you, friends, to be in a Bible-believing, Bible-teaching local church this weekend. God bless you. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. Or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.